Welcome to the Motherhood Alliance podcast, the podcast dedicated to empowering moms and families on their health and wellness journey. I'm Brittany Suttner.
And I'm Andrea Rinkus. Together, we're here to explore holistic approaches that go beyond conventional medicine.
Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you. Everything from nutrition and mental health to alternative therapies and natural living.
And whether you're a new mom navigating the early stages of parenthood or a seasoned pro looking for new ways to support your family's well-being, you're in the right place.
Even better, all of our guests are local small business owners who you can actually talk to and work with. You can learn more about today's guest and connect with hundreds of other health and wellness professionals through our informative and easy-to-use directory at motherhoodalliance.com.
Before we get started, keep in mind that this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personal healthcare advice. Please consult your healthcare provider before making any changes based on the podcast content.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Are you ready to help your family thrive? Let's get started. Hi, we are Britt and Drea from motherhoodalliance.com, and we are excited to welcome you to a 4-episode series with Corinne Zuleger, a certified brain health trainer, neuroencoding specialist, advanced certified trauma practitioner, John Maxwell leadership team member, yoga instructor, and empowerment coach. Additionally, she is trained in subconscious and hypnosis work and serves as a licensed teaching partner with Empowered Living. Corinne's coaching approach is rooted in her signature framework, the 6 Anchors of Wholeness, and she specializes in helping moms and women who feel overwhelmed, disconnected, or unfulfilled, often weighed down by guilt, perfectionism, self-doubt, or hidden grief. As you'll hear in her episodes, her mission is deeply personal, which is why she is so passionate to help women break free from negative self-talk, past traumas, and anxiety over the future. Outside of her coaching, Corinne hosts the Secret Keep Hers podcast and cherishes time spent with her husband of over 30 years and their 3 grown kids. We hope you are ready to learn as much as we did from Corinne. Let's jump into today's episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to welcome Corinne. Welcome today.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we are going to be talking all about some really interesting topics like neuroencoding and rewiring negative self-talk and just goodness, how hard it is to be a mom sometimes.
I'm just excited about listening to all of this. This is going to be great.
Yeah, it is. We always love to get to know you first, though, as a new guest coming in with a new series. And so you shared your fun fact as being that you love to be outdoors and you believe deeply in the power of love. Why did you select that as your fun fact?
Oh, because nothing could be truer. I love to be outside and put my feet in the grass. I love to hike. As a family, we are very outdoorsy people. We spend a lot of time hiking. So we get together now that they're grown and do a big trip every summer where we hike, climb mountains, do things that I never thought I could do. But I just love everything about being outside, the smells, the trees. It's so good to be in tune with nature. And plus, the colors, blue and green, are very good for your mental well-being.
Well, there you go.
Right? Well, no better place to get that than outside. And I truly believe that love is the answer to everything. If I can take a step back and ask myself, is this loving? And what I'm saying or what I'm doing loving? It would solve a lot of problems.
Definitely. I love that. Now, you have quite a robust array of certifications and in-depth knowledge and education into neurocoding and coaching itself. I'd love to hear a little bit about your credentials and why you chose the ones that you did. But first, I'd love to hear how you got into this field.
Oh boy. Okay. I got into this field because I spent a number of years myself being coached. I loved the results I got with my coach. I really enjoyed her as a human. And I thought, you know what? I think I could do that too. That I would be really good at it. At the time I was working with high school students. And what I was really looking for was programming that I could bring into the room with them. I had a very unique, very special room where it was called TLC. The kids thought it was Tender Loving Care. It's really Transitional Learning Center. And so, the students would come into student services. They would see their counselor if they needed something, if they were experiencing anxiety, heightened emotions, whatever they needed, if they were long-term absences, and they would come in. And I started looking at like, what kind of things can I help them with? Because I was seeing it didn't matter if it was a high-achieving student and a student on the lower end, if they were emotionally, behaviorally challenged students, they were really experiencing a lot of the same things. And so what could I do? And that's where I found John Maxwell. He was the only one out there at the time that had programming for youth. And so my coach, within 3 months, had me to the point where I was like, yeah, I can do this. And so then I went and I signed up. So
nice. But then you've also gone on to get additional certifications, Dr. Daniel Amen, and like so many other in-depth ones. So, I mean, this is it seems like you kind of knew where you wanted to go, right? So why did you choose neuroencoding and some of these in-depth certifications?
I come from a long history of substance abuse, and I lost my dad in 2006. He was 59. And then 5 years later, I lost my brother, and he was 41. And I was like, why do people abuse substances? I wanted to know everything. And that got me digging into the trauma certifications, the brain science, and really understanding how we function as humans, or maybe how we are not functioning as humans. So really looking deeply into, sure, the science piece of it, but then understanding the self-love portion of it and these tools. I also have a mentor. His name is Paul Martinelli. Paul grew up a lot like I did, and I related so much to him. I'm like, I want to do what he does.
Well, let's jump into the science a little bit, because we've mentioned the word neuroencoding a couple of times.
Sure.
What does that even mean?
Well, it's actually a word that Joseph McClendon III, my mentor, coined himself. And it's really taking the science of the neuroscience and blending it into rewiring yourself. So you're encoding your body, encoding your brain to have new thoughts. So, we habitually, we default to the negative, and I say that in the most loving way, but it's because the primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, is looking for the danger, right? That we used to have to really be worried about the bear outside, either in the cave, if I'm going to go in, or what's lurking outside of the cave. And nowadays, that's not so much what we need to look for, but we're still wired that way. And so with neuroencoding, what we do is we want to rewire your brain to default to something more positive. So maybe if you did grow up in an environment which what was modeled for you wasn't really positive, you have the ability, because your brain is neuroplastic, you have the ability to change that. And for a long time, people thought that your brain was fixed, that once you got to a certain point, this was it, and that's just how things were going to be, and that's the way you were going to be, but that's not true. And so that's where neuroencoding comes in.
And it doesn't matter how old you are?
Doesn't matter how old you are. You can teach an old dog new tricks. Mm-hmm.
So how does this work? Because as you're talking about rewiring, I'm thinking about some topics that we've had on the podcast in the past, like EMDR or brain spotting, or maybe even hypnosis. But how does this work from your perspective? So
95% of the thoughts that you have every day are repeat from the day before. And so only 5% of your thoughts are what you're actively thinking, what you think you're thinking. So we have the ability to go in and change it. So a thought might come up, and just because that thought comes up doesn't mean we have to take it and believe it, right? So it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
So the thought comes up. What happens is, as you think, you feel. As you feel, you do. And as you do, you have. That's where the outcome comes. So the difference being is, this is repetition. Repetition is the mother of all skills. But then celebration is the father, right? So I go through a process, and I will teach you a process. But by going through that process and say, I have a negative thought that pops up, and by changing that thought and going through that pattern over and over, I can rewire the synapses in the brain. And then one of the most important pieces, and I say this with the most love, is I do not believe as women we do this enough, but is to celebrate the fact that you just did that.
Yeah.
Celebration is is something that we're like, well, I'm just going to be humble, and I'm not going to brag about myself. And I am here to tell you, you need to brag about yourself. You need to be like, pat yourself on the back and shake your booty and be like, I did this thing. I changed it. Right?
Yeah.
The thought process.
I feel like when you say all this, I'm applying it to myself, but I'm applying it to like my kids. I have a 12-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they're so, like they show their feelings so like new, like, rawly, like raw. Is that the word, raw?
Yeah.
They're raw. And so when you say this stuff, I'm like, I need to learn this for me, but holy smokes, if I can help them understand this, that will change their life trajectory. I mean, seriously, I just think of all the things that I could have learned if I was a young kid to now, how that would change so much for my thoughts.
Absolutely. Our kids are going to spend the most time with us, right? And so it's important that what we're modeling for them, is to move to the positive aspect of things. It's not emotional bypass. I really want to be clear with that. We're not going to teach our kids to bypass their emotions because they need to feel them. However, we want them to feel it, acknowledge it, and move through it. Because the longer that gets to camp out in your body, then it becomes a thing, right? So if I think the thought over and over and over again, right? So the thought causes that feeling, but that feeling, when I feel it over and over and over again, becomes the emotion. And that emotion is going to lead me to either do or not do something, right? So we're either going to shut down, or, I'm going to act out. And then there's repercussions for all that, right? So actions have consequences. And we want to teach our kids emotional regulation.
Oh, yeah.
It's not modeled really well on TV. It certainly isn't modeled well on social media or video games or on the playground often, right? So we get to do that at home and hope that carries when they are not in our presence.
Right. And modeling. So you're saying obviously modeling is a huge part of this.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I get that. Yes. I think for me, when I struggle with this, because when my kids are having exactly what you're saying, an emotional breakdown because they're emotionally irregulated, they get that this isn't a behavior that they should be having, but they are feeling that angry feeling or whatever. Mm-hmm. As a mom, it's hard for me to feel like I can help them in the moment. And so I feel like that's part of the big challenge is like, yes, I get that, but like, how do I speak to them? And maybe that's more of a broader topic or something, but it's just really tough as moms when we feel like we're doing the best we can and we try to model the best we can. And yes, we make mistakes and we own up to them. At least I try to. Mm-hmm. But when it's in that moment, it's really hard to help them get out of it.
Get out of that thought pattern.
Yeah.
So one of the things with your kids that you can do, because, in teaching that emotional regulation, is bring the hand to the heart, right? It's about reconnecting with self. So the hand to the heart and taking a nice deep breath in and then exhale out. And then the question I ask is, why am I feeling this, right? Because typically when an emotion is brought on, there's an underlying something, right? The trigger behind it isn't, it's not necessarily what they think it is, right? So once we get them emotionally regulated, which, calming the nervous system down, really the hand to the heart and the deep breath, that helps them pause long enough. And just by acknowledging too, I understand that you feel whatever they're feeling, angry, upset, teaching your kids when they're little, all the different emotions. They were saying, like, I think it was Brene Brown said, the average adult really only understands like 4 emotions. It's not many. And you think about that as you're going about in the world, right? The easiest emotion to go to is anger, right? So we're quick to anger, but how do I come back from that, right? Why am I angry? I start to get curious. What did I make it mean about me?
I think as moms, though, too, we oftentimes have this slow buildup of long-term feelings. Like, I love what you just said about being in the moment and putting your hand over your heart, and that can apply to kids and adults. But with really adults in general, I shouldn't even just say moms. This can absolutely happen to dads or even adults who don't have kids. But we hit burnout, which is a slow grind of emotion that gets deep, right? Mm-hmm. Or guilt. I mean, even as a parent, I constantly feel guilty, and it may not be about things in the past. It's things about what I need to do in the future, right? And just the task list itself. Mm-hmm. So can you help us understand how you walk people through these like long-term challenges?
Okay, so when you're looking at things, especially guilt, perfectionism is a big thing with moms. You said burnout. We're going to use things like the stop technique. And we're going to look around, and I'm going to teach you things about how to take in the world, right? This is when we're talking about, that rhythm. I think as moms, we're like, we have these tight schedules and we have all these things we need to do, and the house needs to look this way, and the kids all need to be clean. And, and we get caught up in this, maybe it's comparison of, like, is it going to be good enough, right? And this is where you get to take a step back and be like, this is your house. These are your children. And things are not going to be perfect. Like often as women, perfect is something that we go to, right? It needs to be perfect. It needs to look a certain way. But it's just not. And releasing yourself from that is important. By, applying the stop techniques, even just taking that time for you. Because what I find with women is we don't take the time for ourselves. There can be a lot of societal pressure about what motherhood should look like. I'm going to put in air quotes, shoulding, right? We're shoulding on ourselves all the time that, if the kids are having a tantrum out in public, somehow that's the mom's fault. And here's the reality. That is not your fault that child is right now not emotionally regulated. Because that is another human being of which you cannot control. Control is a big issue for me. So taking people through this healing process really starts to taking the look inward is, why does it need to look perfect or be perfect? Why do I stack all of these things on top of myself? So for me, when I was raising the kids, I had the idealism. I grew up in the 70s, and this was a period of time where women were really beginning to take back their power, if you will. We were stepping into moving from, one person being employed to having the, two incomes and bigger houses and nicer cars. And so we moved from, the mom in the mom role, again, air quotes, mom role. We moved from having that be our primary focus to having jobs in wanting to, prove like I could do it all. There was this commercial back then, and it was a perfume commercial, Anjali, and it was like, I can bring home the bacon, fry it up in a pan, never let you forget you're a man because I'm a woman. And that whole thing was like, I can do it all and I don't need to ask for help. But we do.
Yeah.
We do need help. We need groups like the Motherhood Alliance to be able to connect us to, resources that we need as mothers. We also need to take that time for ourselves, even if it's just 15 minutes of alone time. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to that alone time was like, I'm going to take a shower, right? That alone time started to, but really your basic needs, that shouldn't be what you're doing for yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, I have a list of items that I'm going to try a new coffee shop. I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to listen to some soothing music that I want to listen to that doesn't sound like Barney. I know that dates me as a mom, but that's what it was, right? So, doing those things that to take care of you. So in the neuroencoding, in the path, in learning how to rewire your brain, essentially is rewiring the mom brain, that rewiring it from thinking that it's got to be perfect, that we got to do all the things. One of the things I wish I would have done as a mom was said no.
Oh, yeah.
That we're not going to do all the premier sports and all the things that kind of overwhelmed everybody. For me, that, with trying to keep up with what everybody else expected of me and not asking for help, believing that I needed to do it all myself because I was the mom, right? You're the mom. That had me literally on the bathroom floor wanting to take my life.
Oh, man.
And so, my husband's in the shower. I'm crying. I have no idea why I'm crying. It's Saturday morning. I think, you're right, I'm overwhelmed. I'm burnt out. And I slide the shower curtain open, and he just looks at me and says, Corinne, I can't help you. And I just sat down on the floor, and I was like, I'm just a pain in everybody's butt. And I really don't know what I'm doing. And I just don't want to do this anymore. And I'd be better off dead, because I'm just too much for everybody. And then this little voice inside of me said, pick up the phone, Corinne. And I did. And I called a friend at church, an older woman. And this is where the wisdom comes in, right? From the older women. And she's like, here's what, you're not there alone. Here's what you need to do. And she walked me through what I needed to do. And then from there, I got help. But it is in that believing that we can't ask for help that somehow makes you look like a failure, and you're not. And so reprogramming that. So that's where neuroencoding will come in, and we're going to teach you some techniques and different things like that. But just a reminder, again, if I'm going to teach my kids hand on my heart, I do that for myself.
Yeah,
you'll see me do it quite a bit, because it's like hand on my heart, deep breath. I am safe. I am worthy. I do belong. 3 mantras I say to myself.
Thank you for sharing your tender story. I mean, I think a lot of women can relate, right, to the burnout and the bottom, hitting the bottom. And I think we're all deeply excited to have you walk through this process.
Yeah, I'm prepped.
Because you've hinted toward it, but listeners, we're going to be saving that for a future episode. So make sure you stay tuned for Corinne's next 3 episodes. You do have something on your website that is a free download. It's a workbook.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
This is about reconnecting to love, which is within you. I choose the word love because it's very neutral, right? So it's really about reconnecting to your higher self. It's what's inside of you, because all of the answers that you need are truly inside of you and your connection to your higher power. And so this workbook is going to take you through some processes, help you learn some breathing techniques, some mantras, and really taking a look at, how do I get back to me? Because we're so disconnected from ourselves. And how do I get back to returning to that place of love where I truly love myself and love my life and love everybody around me, because that's what's possible. So there's all sorts of tips and tricks in that particular workbook to help you slow down enough and really connect back to you.
Well, that's amazing.
I think everybody should be starting there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
If someone wants to download that workbook or just learn more about you, where can they find you?
www.CorinneZuleger.com. That's where they can find the workbook. You can find me. I'm on all the different social media platforms too. My podcast, The Secret Keep Hers, HERS. That particular podcast is really talking about, we talk about healing, healing in all the different ways, shapes, and forms, whether it's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or physically.
Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we are going to be coming back with 3 more episodes. So we're really just hitting pause, you guys, on this amazing conversation. In our next episode, we're going to be talking about rewiring that negative self-talk. So I'm excited to dive into these 6 different steps in the process. And then we're going to be talking about therapy versus coaching. What's kind of the difference, subconscious work, all sorts of things like that. And then finally, we're going to be finishing up with an episode on mom brain and naturally healing. So stay tuned, you guys. Those are the next ones coming up. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider leaving a rating or review or sharing it directly with a friend who could benefit from the information? We know that you're a busy mom or caregiver, and our goal is to make your life easier by bringing tips and tricks directly from experts into your earbuds. By sharing this episode with someone you love, you can play a critical role in helping to make their life easier as well. We appreciate your time, and thank you for being a part of the Motherhood Alliance family.